Welcome to our latest episode of the Showbox Sires series, The Evolution of the Great Cow. In this series, we introduce bulls that are coming into the Showbox Sires program, and we bring you the people that develop the bulls. Today, it's our true pleasure to introduce somebody that we're thrilled to have involved with Showbox Sires, a guy that has bred and developed as many good cows as any herd in the world. The Kingsway prefix is known throughout the world for their great cattle and their great breeding and the great job marketing the boys do. So today we've only got one of them on because we figured we wouldn't have enough time to have both of them telling us their accolades. But we're gonna welcome Ethan McMillan to the podcast. Ethan, welcome, and we're thrilled to have you to talk about our next release bull at the Select Sires program, 744 HO 17769 VENMO. So welcome, Ethan.
Thanks for having me on. Uncle Tim, Mike, appreciate it. Thanks for scooping VENMO up. Pretty cool to get our first bull in the Showbox Sires. We're excited to start using them in the herd and see how everyone else makes it with them too.
It's been a few years ago, and they caught your eye. Has had a lot of owners since and before you. But can you tell people when you bought her and kind of what made you go after that cow?
So I guess looking back on it all, it was 2021. We've never been the top buyers by any means, but we've always wanted that special cow. And to me, it caught your eye, ticked all the boxes, crazy high genomics. She just made bullseye and eye candy. Her flush history was unreal. We actually got the sale. We had truck problems. We got the sale just kind of when it was starting. Just a couple seconds looking at her, you could tell she was the real deal. She was almost one of those ones that was too good to be true. After we bought her, we left her at your guy's spot. We IVF'd her a few times, and on she went to Madison. To me, there hasn't been many cows that offered to the public probably since Apple that can do everything, do the bulls, do the showing, and each generation get better and better. She was a unique individual, and the market at the time was just kind of starting to take off, and we were able to afford her for a decent price.
As hosting that sale, we're glad you made it. Your truck got fixed and you made it there, but you stepped up and bought a great young cow. And as you know, that you can buy the best cow in the world, and if she doesn't make embryos or doesn't pass those genetics on, it's hard to make money with them. And you certainly have showed how to invest in cattle and make money with them. And that's this cow's family's done that over and over.
I just think there's one piece of this puzzle Ethan forgot. I was sitting in the box reading the pedigrees, and I believe Mike, I told Ethan clearly he needed to bid again, and I remember you walking over and telling him he needed to bid again. And I'm shocked that he didn't tell us that in this discussion that Mike and I saved the day, frankly, for you, Ethan. Would that be right, Mike? Is that the way you remember it?
That's exactly how I remember it. And Ethan's he's not a small guy. And for me and you to twist on his arm like that, it's taken a lot of risk. So it was risky, but I think it panned out pretty well for him.
And I went to the mailbox before this podcast and checked to see if our bonus checks were in there, Mike. Still missing, but we'll get through that, right, Ethan?
Definitely got bullied into buying her. We were out probably 30,000 before.
I think bully is a little bit of a stretch, Mike.
It's definitely pays to take advice from the right people, though. I remember, I think Flash almost struck her down. I think, Tim, you said you seen Mike coming over to me, and he got me to bid one more time. So I'm really happy that happened.
Great memories, guys? A lot of fun. So, Ethan, with your time with the cow, you IVF'd her to several different bulls. You had several things you did with her, but basically, tell us about the offspring you got out of her, and specifically go into Vibe, the dam of VENMO.
We sold after Madison. We sold her as a package to Geno Source. Sold every single pregnancy as well, except we kept 2 alligator pregnancies, and one of them ends up being caught a Vibe. As a calf, she was definitely a standout. She genomic tested well. I remember telling Mike that this was the best heifer we've ever had on the farm at the time, and obviously those words came true a year later. But We believed in her so much that we set up a little tent in our barn in our hoof trim and shoot, and we were able to do IVF on her at a young age. We IVF'd her to Lambda. That created the 3rd, 7th, and 8th place December calves this year. And then we got a bull out of the deal, and that's VENMO. Had a 1 flush. The cow's definitely breeding true. I don't know the stats on nominations or top 10s per progeny, but I'd say she's going to rank pretty high on how she's breeding so far.
So say that again, Ethan. They were 3rd, 7th, and 8th where?
At the Royal.
Pretty big show, and 3 of the top 8 calves, all sisters.
I think there is 50 or 60 calves in the class as well. So it's a pretty big feat.
And Mike and I have recently seen the bull. Mike, just tell our listeners quickly, the heifers are pretty, but what about the bull?
When we were at Select touring around, he wasn't a hard bull to pick out. He's a straight line, long necked dairy bull with great feet and legs. And you can just look at that bull and say, well, I'll bet you he'll make good daughters. It'll be hard for him not to. It's pretty exciting, and can't wait to use the bull ourselves. Certainly for a cow to have that many daughters to compete at that level, that it just doesn't happen.
And Ethan, the first time I saw one of these sisters to VENMO was in Quebec this summer at one of the Quebec shows. And just, so much style and balance and all the great traits, but still, the strength and width of a Lambda. So pretty exciting. Just one more time, tell us a little about what makes these daughters of Cotta Vibe. Well, first of all, tell us about Cotta Vibe today. So, she was a champion as a heifer, right? Tell us that history, and then tell us about the cow today.
Well, we showed her once. She was junior champion at Ontario Summer Show. Uncle Steve Valtois bought half of her, and he bought all the remaining progeny. It's kind of a little bit of a caught your eye deal, but we stayed in on half of this one because, to me, she's our future brood cow. So after that, she went to Marianne's in Embrun, and then she went to Madison. She's junior champion there. Calved out. She went 87 as a 1-year-old, making a really good record. Beautiful tight udder on her, big crease. Phenomenal mobility. Great everyday cow. After seeing her progeny, we want more. So she's on a full-time flush program right now to keep making them, because the way that she's making daughters, we have some March and April daughters off of her, and I think they're even better than her December calves this year. Be pretty steamy yearlings, I think.
And I guess, so our listeners know, Ethan, so she went 87 as a 2-year-old, and that's the highest they can go in Canada. She's at the top of the game.
Yeah, 87 as a 1-year-old, so that's the highest she can go. And I believe she's 2nd or 3rd for type in Canada right now as well, which is nice to see that the junior champion heifer can calve out and hold her genomic value and even go up as well. So quite the individual and breeding tremendously right now anyways.
Mike, I haven't had the luxury of seeing Cotta Vibe since she calved. You've seen her. Tell us what you think of her.
Not long after she calved, I'd seen some pictures of her. Ethan had sent me, and I went up for the tag sale. And right away you think when you walk in a barn that the junior champion, sometimes they're so extreme, and that's actually, I was pleasantly surprised that she wasn't this big, extreme, too tall, too narrow kind of heifer. Here was a cow that had a lot of balance, and a cow that, she was recently fresh when I seen her. She already had a lot of quality to her mammary. And as Ethan said, her feet and legs, she had great feet and legs, moved out nice on her feet and legs. Extreme balanced kind of young cow that I think as she gets older, she's going to score really high and continue to develop into a great cow.
And Ethan, you've talked about a lot of the traits of the cow and the bull. Give our listeners just a couple things that you think will be the specialty of VENMO. Like, what would you use him for? What do you expect the VENMOs to look like?
Looking at his genomics, both on U.S. side and Canadian side, there's not many bulls that can be high in both systems, and he's high in both systems, and that's huge. He's got lots of milk in both systems as well. Looking at the bull, his genomics, and just actually looking at him physically, there isn't anything I would change about him. These days, well, there's a lot of caught your eye stuff that's out there, and to me, I got a lot of faith in the bull, saying that I think he could be the next great bull to sire all these great ones.
Obviously, over the last 15, 20 years, you guys have had your fingers on a lot of great cows and great cow families that are known around the world, with the Alleys and the Jasmines, and now you got Caudavibe and a whole lot of cows in between that. As we release this bull, if you would maybe touch base on kind of the crosses and stuff that you would see that this bull would work good on the more popular bulls that have a lot of daughters today.
We're probably milking half our herd be lambdas. Lambdas to me is one of the best bulls that I've ever seen in my lifetime. There's some things that you change about the bull. You want to give him some more width up front. I wouldn't be afraid of doubling up this bull on lambda daughters or lambda blood. He's got enough strength. He's got straight front legs, and he's got the style that some of the lambdas missed out on as well. He's got all the best characteristics about Alligator as well. Alligator can make some great ones, but he has his problems. And to me, this bull, he's the best of both worlds. I don't think it's a bad idea to cross him over on some of the lambda or Alligator bloodlines. If you guys weren't going to take him, I would use him as a herd sire. We've never had a herd sire around, but I would use him across our whole herd. He's one of the nicest animals to ever leave the farm.
That certainly says a lot with the herd that you guys have built. And, it is kind of unique. I mean, I'm just looking at his U.S. numbers for a bull to be, over 1,000 of milk, a low cell count bull, 3 1/4 of type, almost 3 on udders, under 2.5 of stature, the correct rumps, the right size of teats, and mostly right side linear, with the pedigree he has. I mean, we're going back generation after generation of show cows that's performed All-American, All-Canadian, all the way back to Black Rose, kind of the full package. And that's why we wanted him, and then we're proud we picked him up from you.
Uncle Steve said about this bull when he was born, he said, the best Goldman son was the last one to go to AI, and that was his bull, Atwood. And he says the best lambda bull to go to AI is going to be the last one, and this is VENMO. Hopefully that comes true in the end.
Take a second and tell our listeners, I mean, we've referenced Steve a little bit. We ought to recognize Steve, your partner in this. Tell them a little about Steve and his history in this business, because it's profound. I mean, he's had a big impact.
Steve's been a great friend and partner. He owned the junior champion before Caudavibe at Madison, and that was Kingsway Alligator Twix. He's been a big supporter of our herd as well, and he's put many bulls in AI. One of his most famous bulls is Atwood, so he knows the game. His words about this bull being the last lambda and the best one at the same time, Uncle Steve's usually right. Hopefully he's right again.
If you don't think he is, just ask him, right?
Yeah.
He'll appreciate that. Mike, do you have any final thoughts on the bull for our listeners?
You're putting a lot of not only great bulls and cows in one pedigree, but a lot of great breeders. You got Bob Schaff, Rosedale, you got Kingsway. So it's been a lot of great cows in this pedigree, but there's also a lot of great breeders that have made the decisions to get to this point. So sometimes we forget about all those guys that probably were standing around deciding what to mate a cow to, and there's a lot of knowledge been put in this cow family.
Isn't it interesting, Mike? You've talked about all these show cows and all these breeders that didn't necessarily breed for numbers. And Ethan, you've referenced the genomic values of this bull several times. Isn't it cool that with modern genetics, we've put it all in one package, Ethan?
Yeah, for sure. Let alone how many bulls have 4 direct All-American dams, fully proven sire stack. And you look at the sires, those are, to me, the best Canadian proven bulls that has been in this era in the last 20 years. You got Lambda, Alligator, Unex, Thorman, Goldwyn. Not much more you'd want of a breeder's sire stack anyways.
You mentioned the great sire stack, and that's how we get those numbers. That's how we get there. Well, we certainly thank Ethan McMillan from Kingsway Farm in Hastings, Ontario, a master breeder, people that have touched a lot of good cows. And Mike, when we started Showbox Sires, one of our goals was to incorporate herds like Kingsway that necessarily weren't putting bulls into AI and give them an avenue to market their genetics and their product. Quickly, a sidetrack, Ethan, are there Kingsway bulls in AI at this point?
We put our first one in 30 years last year. So.
Yeah, I guess that's my point is Kingsway is one of the greatest breeding herds in the world, and we're excited that you're a partner with Showbox Sires to bring this bull to the public. Thank you to Ethan McMillan and my partner Mike Duckett for being on this podcast. We love to bring you the information on our new bulls through this podcast system. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to the release of our next bull in our Showbox Sires Select Sires program, 744 HO 17769 VENMO, the Delta Lambda son out of Alligator from a Caught Your Eye cow, one of the neatest pedigrees in our lineup.